Hello and welcome back to the official Scottish Rugby podcast. I'm Jamie McMillan, and with me as always I have Al Kellock, Chris Patterson and Lindsay Smith. On the podcast this week it's a Calcutta Cup special as we reflect on that amazing game at Twickenham on Saturday, plus we hear from Greig Laidlaw, Gregor Townsend, Eddie Jones and Owen Farrell.
A unique game. I've never been involved in a game like that as a player or a coach. There's not many games of rugby end up being 31-0 to 38-31 and end up at 38 all, especially when you think of the team we're up against and what a good defence they've got. So yeah, it's the most unusual game I've been involved in. Head coach Gregor Townsend there in the post-match press conference. I think every adjective has been used to describe the game from the weekend. England 38, Scotland 38. I've not been able to process that game. Guys, how do we sum up that game?
Oh, you go,
Al. From my own personal emotion, I was sitting in the first half and it was just, as low as you've been. I was sitting in the stand, surrounded by English fans, and was taking a reasonable amount of grief as to how the game was going. First half very, very quiet. At half time you're having little conversations about what Scotland need to do to try and get themselves back into this game, or try and almost limit the damage that it could possibly do. We're staring down 50-60 points. It could have been 2 years ago again, and then just a change momentum. England all of a sudden couldn't do anything right, and everything that Scotland did was working. So whatever was said at half time, whatever tactical change was made a massive difference. So it was a brilliant game of rugby to be at. At the end of the game I didn't know whether to be happy or sad.
Yeah, Al, do you think there was a change in momentum pre-half time when McInally scored that try? Do you think that was enough to shift it, or? Potentially,
although it clearly made a big difference towards the end. But when you go in at half time, you should be able to reset. England should have been able to press reset on that and go out and play another 40 minutes of rugby. The interesting thing about that try was that, Stuart Ramble's finish was brilliant. He did exceptionally well. Johnny May could have probably ran round him, turned round and tackled him front on, but just as he went to make that tackle, changed the direction from Stuart, he's underneath, and then Finn Russell and Owen Farrell had a little exchange of words just as the try was scored as well.
I think that did have a massive effect. It was another try for England if Stuart McInally hadn't charged that down. There was a brilliant piece of skill before that from Tom Curry, created an opportunity, and they could either pass or kick to I think they had 4 extra men over the top. But that, if England had scored again then, I think it's obviously a different story. But the bit of skill to charge down, pick up, and then the finish was excellent. So I think it probably had a bigger effect looking back on it now than I did think at the time. I would go as far as to say, I said it this morning, that because you were so far behind at half time, I think that's a way into the game. I think if we were maybe 10, 12, maybe even 15 points down, I still think England go on and win that game. I think, but when you've got nothing to lose and the buffer's so big that even though we scored early in the second half, brilliant score, Darcy's first try, you still, if you're England's point of view, they didn't seem shocked or too concerned. Then you score again similarly, they're like, oh yeah, okay. But then by the time they realise that on Darcy's second score that they're up against it here, the momentum's completely with Scotland. They couldn't do anything to halt it, and some of the attacking play from our lads in the second half especially was brilliant. The inaccuracies in the first half are what frustrate me. I thought England's attack was excellent. I thought it was really difficult to defend against, but there were so many inaccuracies when we had possession. We turned it over really easily. Passing was poor. Every pass was hitting the shoulder or hitting the ground, and then it was a complete role reverse in the second half. You see Billy Vunipola being stripped of the ball, Ellis Genge being stripped of the ball. So these wee things that happened to us in the first half happened to them in the second, but an incredible comeback. But yeah, loads to look at, loads to talk about, and I suppose loads of questions to be answered.
That first half, I spoke to Matt Taylor after the game and he was talking about defence, and there was no lack of effort, but there was a lack of accuracy, and at times our guys are looking for that big hit and leaving spaces outside or inside themselves, and they did that for 40 minutes almost consistently. And in second half, to your point about the momentum shift, I was surprised that Eddie Jones didn't go to his bench earlier. When you look at that game, 10-15 minutes into that second half, he must have felt that turning, and at that stage I expected him to empty his bench.
Talking about the bench though, I was quite surprised that we put 4 on at one time. That's not something we've maybe done in the past?
We did it in Paris, and I think guys, one major strength of this championship has been the impact off the bench from the Scotland players. Almost consistently in every single game, the guys that have come on have made a good impact. So Gregor obviously trusts that, and he trusts the guys putting on, and he's also putting on guys like Johnny Gray who have played a lot of rugby in this championship. But credit to them, because that's a difficult time for them to come on, because the game's already turned almost in favour of Scotland, but they need to grab that and continue, and they did brilliantly.
The thing is, with England as well, I think going back to that margin still being or perceived to be so big because it was 31 points at one stage, and that's probably another reason why they didn't go at the bench too early. They probably subconsciously still thought, oh yeah, we've still got a big enough gap, but it happened so quickly. I think the 3 tries, at the start of the second half came quickly, obviously, and then the try at the end of the first half. So it's poor management really, because if you're not aware of what the scoreboard's telling you, because maybe subconsciously think there's someone else. But great impact for the bench again from our players. But yeah, it's a strange one to digest.
You watched the game on telly, Mossy. What was being said? What was being said at half time?
Just mainly how accurate England were, and how good their attack was in order to score the first few tries. And I think that was probably right. I think there was defensive errors, obviously, from Scotland's point of view, but the respect you have to pay the big runners from England on these short lines, on these down lines, is you have to hold for them, because their timing was excellent. There were their options on the ball, but Farrell's distribution to find the free man more often than not was excellent. A few delayed passes, either short to carry through the line or Vunipola through the line, or going deeper to the backs, and then the finishing outside was good. So that was mainly the thought at half time. There was nothing really about Scotland's deficiencies. It was more about how well England had played. But the period just before half time, I think obviously where McInally scored was important, but there was a period just before that where Scotland kept possession for 7 or 8 phases in English half, actually stemmed the tide a wee bit.
We go back to the first try, Stuart McInally. What actually impressed me about that was, if you watch it, it's the way that he's able to continue his stride and pace to pick up the ball. Traditionally you would maybe see somebody of his frame having to kind of stop, pick up, but it's a one-handed take and he's still in full flow. And the pace that he has to get through. Owen Farrell kicks through, Lindsay. Owen Farrell kicks through and then chases back, but you're always going to struggle being, chasing back to catch up. But you'd think a 10 chasing a 2, you more chance on Owen Farrell. But Johnny May was also involved in that. But what pace by Rambo! I mean, what a break!
Oh, it was fantastic. And you also noticed near the end that he changes his angle of run so that he buys himself some extra time.
That's a crucial bit.
And I think that was really important. I'm not sure how aware he was where those England players were, but
because it was the right time. Finish. Because when he stepped, Johnny May dived from him, and he actually took out Owen Farrell a little bit as well, which might have helped Rambo go over the line.
I'm not sure it was pace. It was a brilliant bit of skill. It was a brilliant finish. He got the initial break was great. There's no hook in the world running away from Johnny May. It was the step. It was the change of direction that made that try that meant he could finish it. Because Johnny May and Owen Farrell, if they should have made that tackle, and there was a few later on as well, like Sam Johnson's try. From an English defensive point of view, they'll be very angry that he's managed to break 2-3 tackles on his way to the line. The
mistake, from my opinion, that Johnny May made there was he tried to tackle Rambo too early. Like he's got all the gas. He can almost let Stuart McInally change direction. He didn't have to dive early. I was pleased he did. Yep. But the way in which Stuart McInally changed, it was brilliant. And Rambo did that. I think it was Toulon away, maybe in Europe as well. He scored this season just for Edinburgh. He ran in from 45-50 metres, but quite a similar kind of distance. And he's explosive, he's quick, but Johnny May didn't have to dive in to make that tackle as early as he did.
On him though, he brilliant finish, but credit to him because he took over the captaincy just second last game of the championship. Now that's a tough time to come in. Tournament hadn't gone exactly the way we would have wanted it. Now he played a big part in making sure that the momentum shifted back in that second half with his own personal performance, but also with the small talk he was having around with the rest of the players. He's developing into a captain. He's captain at Edinburgh, but it'll be a different style being an international captain. It will be a club captain. So then we've got to give him enormous credit for his impact on that game.
So it was 31-7 at half time. There was people leaving the stadium, I'm told, disappeared. They thought the game was over. Finns came out this week and said there was an argument in the changing room. The argument's probably not the best word to use, but just from your guys' experience, when you go back into a changing room, it's not going to be all kind of relaxed. You're going to be trying to work out the problem, and I think that's maybe what Finn was alluding to.
I think the argument's probably, for me, the wrong word. You will have a heated exchange, you'll have a debate as to what the right thing to do is. You'll get a different sense of what's needed to do right or wrongly when you're on the field as you do when you're off the field. When you're different perspective from touchline as to what you are in the stands. So what Gregor will see will be different to what Mike Blair sees at the touchline, what will be different to what the players feel on the field. So you have to combine all that information, and everyone will strongly put their viewpoint across, which is right, especially when you're 31-7 down. If it was to be a harmonious place, it'd be something wrong. Yeah. But what's the most important thing to come out of that? Whatever the way forward, or the game plan in which you agree to employ in the second half, it has to be employed. So whatever happens in the changing room happens in order to come up with a solution or a plan that has to be implemented. And that's where your trust and your culture comes in. So before they would go back out to the field, there would be an agreement on what they were going to do, and they would go out and do it. I actually think they just did the same as the first half, but a lot better. I don't think there's a huge amount of change. I felt when we kicked in the first half, Finn and whoever was kicking under pressure. There was a charge down option. Our kick chase wasn't quite ready because our skills and our accuracy was poor. We were under pressure. In the second half, we were on the front foot. We were moving onto the ball. We had the kick chase set up. We made the right decisions to run or kick. You're shaking your head. I don't think there's a huge change in tactic. I just thought the effective and accuracy and the execution was so much better. I
agree with that part. I think when you go in at half time, when you're 31-7 down, there's two elements to it. There's the tactics, there's the technical element you need to do in the second half, and there's also getting the top 2 inches right. There has to be some sort of mindset change, and I know the players talked about the fact that at 31-7 there's two ways it can go for them. They could end up being on the wrong end of a 50-60 point defeat, or they can go out and they can endeavour, make sure that the work rate, the willingness to push himself into dark places is there as well. Now,
but you could say that could it go two ways? I think it could only go one way at 31-7 down.
But it went the other way.
That's what I mean. That's the only way. I don't think it could get that much worse.
You know
what I mean?
No, I don't know if I agree with that. Look at 2 years ago.
I think scoreline could get a lot worse, but
yeah, but you're only. I'm saying at half time, like you couldn't have had another 40 minutes if you look at performance as poor as the first 35 really.
No.
So almost your back's completely up against the wall. It's like, you know what? There's only one way this can go. Let's go and do it.
I know.
Rather than being concerned about how much worse it can get.
Well, I know at half time that's what they spoke about. They spoke about the fact that there was two ways it could go. Stuart McInally talked to me some of the messaging that he put out there, and it was about the fact that they, as a group of players, they're on the cusp here. For me, it could have got worse. As a supporter,
absolutely, yeah, I understand. But
supporter on the stand, I was fully expecting. There was nothing to show us apart from that one try by Stuart McInally. There was nothing to show us that we had any sort of optimism. So for the players to grab that and switch it around, and I completely agree with technical aspects of tactics as well. The accuracy was so much better in the second half, which made the difference from an England point of view. They thought the game was won. They were comfortable. You made the point earlier. They were comfortable in letting Scotland get back to another score, and actually letting Scotland get another score. And then by the time that they realise they're in a game, they don't have any momentum. They can't do anything right. Now that's where I thought Eddie Jones should have gone to his bench earlier. But I mean, it was 31-7 in the first half, 31-7 in the second half. It was incredible. And I've got to say, I was fairly vocal towards the end of the game compared to what I was like in the first half.
The other wee bit niggling away is skip forward a few 20 minutes or so. You're now 38-31 up, and that's a frustrating bit. Again, you've done so well to get ahead, then actually the tides completely change. And in England, we must admit, when they had to, they did get that score to draw it level. But I don't know.
It's difficult because we had no right to be 38. That doesn't sound quite right, because we went out and played in the second half the way we should have. But at that stage, to be that far up is phenomenal. From a spectator's point of view, the players would have been obviously trying to do their best. Now there will undoubtedly be frustration that we didn't manage to close that game out. To my point, I didn't know whether I'd be happy or sad at the end. The only thing that made me a little bit happier was when Stuart McInally went up and lifted the trophy. It's not something we've seen all that often down there.
Do you think it's a case of, with England, when we got that momentum in the second half, they seem like a team? They've got a game plan, but when it's not going their way, they is it fair to say that they don't maybe have a backup plan?
I thought it showed a lack of leadership from them on the park in the second half. Now they needed somebody to grab a hold of that and make sure that there was a wee bit more clearer communication going on. They were the better team by so much in the first half that they should have been able to grab it back.
Al, do you not think though maybe at half time they think that this game's done and dusted? It almost, if I felt that they came back out and it was like, they didn't see Scotland coming.
Undoubtedly.
Going on the first half performance, it was like they're not touching us, they're not coming.
But that's where it comes down to lack of leadership.
Yeah.
Like they undoubtedly thought the game was won. Now, whether it's language or whether it's actions, it's probably more actions rather than anything else. If that was us, can you imagine if we were digesting the game after being 31-7 up? And
it was almost like they just switched off, completely for that kind of first 20 minutes of the second half, and yeah, you're right, they turned it back on again when they needed to near the end, but
they didn't have possession though, and that's where, like, for me, you're right, Al, that a leadership involvement there where actually just do something really simple and just get the ball and keep it, even if it's in their own third, or just try and influence the game somehow, stop the momentum running away, but you need possession to do that, because the harder you work defensively to make an impact, the more individual you work. So you're flying at the line trying to hit everything left, right and centre and make the big hit to transform the feeling or flip over the momentum, but you're doing that on your own, you're not part of a structure. So I think in order to wrestle momentum back, you need possession, and I think that's why our accuracy in the second half, or set piece accuracy, or keeping the ball under pressure, or catch pass, all the basic bits, or kicks hit turf, we had a good kick chase. Actually, for all England, you can be critical of their leadership and how they did. We never gave them the opportunity.
No, to your point now, Scotland in the first half played like a team full of individuals.
Yeah.
England played a brilliant team performance, and then we just flipped it in its head in the second half. Can you change that? In 40 minutes of rugby, you should be able to change that.
There should be times there, like one or two things you can grab a hold of.
And again, grabbing a hold of that ball from an England point of view and just keeping it for 5 or 10 minutes, picking and going, whatever it was that changed or took the sting out of Scotland's momentum, is what they could have done. But
they did ultimately in the end for the draw when they had to, so that it's still in them, but just.
And all this chat about England, enormous credit to what we went out there and did in that second half. Like there was nobody watching that game in the world that would have given us a chance to be 30-31 up after the clock had turned 80 minutes, and that's because of the actions that the players went out there and did. So you can only say great things about them.
I had an interesting second half. Purely, I watched the game, the first half in the stadium, in front of the coach's box, and you're watching that game and you're going through a whole mix of emotions. So then I went away and I'm setting up for the press conference, and there's a TV in the room, and I'm kind of listening to the game. We score our second try and our third try, and I'm slowly creeping back towards the TV, and there's some English journalists sitting around. I think maybe some of them had maybe thought the game was over and they were writing up their match reports. We truly get back into the game, and I'm getting more and more excited, and I think Finn scored his try, and I went mental. I was whipping and I was hollering, and this guy just looked at me, English guy, and just said, "Sorry, we don't behave like that in the press conference room." And I said, "Oh, sorry," and then Sam Johnson scores his next try, and I just grabbed my camera and go, "See ya," and run out the door trackside, because it was unbelievable turnaround. We have to mention Darcy Graham. He got the first try for Scotland in the second half and then scored another one later on. He's been brilliant, hasn't he?
Just his game is just exceptional. He's electric, he's powerful, he's quick. The build-up play to that try was really good as well. Almost what you'd characterise as Scotland's blueprint, the quick pass, the short pass and the support play, the offloading, brilliant, absolutely brilliant, but he still had a huge amount to do, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he had three defenders on him once he crossed the line. Yeah. So he was still under pressure trying to score it.
His second finish as well, second try, how he finished off from the long pass and the brilliant time pass to Sean Maitland. Brilliant finisher. But we've seen it for Edinburgh, we've seen it in the age grade stuff, we've seen it play for Hoyt. I mean, He's an exceptional talent, and I'm just so happy because he's a gem of a wee bloke who just gets on with, rolls his sleeves up, and like, I know it was a draw and it wasn't a win, but his and obviously last week against Wales was a defeat, but his contribution over the last 2 weeks has been nothing short of exceptional.
Yeah, in the World Cup, he'll definitely put his hand up for selection. I mean, he'll be pushing British Lions hard to get himself that starting jersey in the wing. Did you see the picture of him sitting at the back of the two English players?
That was hilarious.
I
Just looks like a wee boy sitting.
Yeah, it was put out by was it Borders College? It was put out by Borders College as well. I'm sitting having a nice time on Saturday.
I think that was the first ruck he'd ever been involved in. He didn't know what to do, but yeah, he's some talent. But you're right, Mossy. Just on that, he is genuinely one of the nicest guys you can be around, and no one deserves it more, the amount of work that he puts in. It may make some interesting coaching decisions for Gregor and the coaching team going forward, but we've got a lot of options on the wing, so a young guy like Darcy really pushing for
if we're kind of looking at the championship as a whole, what started being the main story is almost still a pertinent story at the end, is injuries. And a number of injuries. I think it was 19 from the initial squad that were listed as unavailable due to injury, then picked up, I think, Hamish Watson on top of that, and then there was the injuries in the first test, and now of course you're never going to have a full squad the whole time, but what those injuries have allowed Scotland to do is test other players in that environment, and it does more than that. It confirms the ones who come in and play and perform as well as they did, gives them confidence and belief. It gives the coaches and support and the whole nation confidence and belief, but it also pushes the ones who are injured and the older guys at the more experienced guys. It pushes them on as well, because you see it, we've all been there. Somebody comes in and you're like, okay, I need to push on. Comes in and they push on and they do as well as they do, and then and that new person maybe looks up to you, or you inspire them by your actions, by trying to improve. So you push each other on. It's exactly what we want, and I'm pleased to say that the injuries have never been used as an excuse. Gregor and the coaches have never really mentioned them. They've been asked of them, but it's never been an excuse. And ultimately, the way it's turned out, yes, there was a lot of senior experience missing that could have helped in certain moments in the game so far on the Six Nations, but it's broadened the base. It'll push each other on, and if you get a few more back, then it does make a really difficult selection come September. Gregor
talked post-match about the fact that he'd learned an awful lot about individuals, and he talked about Sam Johnson, he talked about Darcy, we've already mentioned, and he also talked about Magnus Bradbury. So Magnus stepped up massively in a tough game at Twickenham. Now he's now played 380 minutes for Scotland.
It was one game back, wasn't it, after 4 months, and then into 3 tests back to back.
Yeah, after 4 months out, as you mentioned. I mean, that's a big ask, and he put in an incredible shift at the weekend. So you talk about injuries, you talk about the fact that we've found some more players and found out an awful lot about those players. It can only set us in good stead moving forward.
Back row as well, like Hamish coming back. Jamie Ritchie I thought was unbelievable.
Yeah,
tournament as well.
He's brilliant.
Magnus, Josh, Sam Skinner coming back. I mean, there's just so many options really, and what becomes crucial now for everyone, for the individuals and for Scottish rugby, is the domestic form. Europe and Pro 14 games become really, really important. They're always important, but they become really important for the individuals in terms of their performance for their team, but also in terms of selection for World Cup.
Sam Skinner's injury at the beginning of the tournament, that's a disappointing one, because we would have liked to have seen him with another 3, 4, 5 caps under his belt moving into the summer, because he looks as if he's very close to pushing for that starting 50 even when everybody's fit.
Second row, back row,
yeah, definitely second row, back row, I would say.
Sitting on the fence.
I suppose it comes down to the balance of your team and who's fit. It's a difficult one.
They can do either pretty well,
and at a World Cup's a great asset to have somebody that could play both.
Yeah, and you see him around the squad as well. He's a popular guy. He gets on well with everyone, and I think he brings a lot on the pitch, but there's certain players that bring a lot more off the pitch as well. So he's definitely a valuable asset there. You touched on Magnus. He got his try. I mean, it's a brilliant support line from Ali Price's breakthrough. So Ali Price just looked up, wee dink through, off he went, and there he was on his shoulder. Great support line, wasn't it? I
thought it was good though as well. Ali had more than one option there, but obviously Magnus picked the best line out of the 3 that were around Ali, and actually the ball got to him.
Ian McGeechan, who used to coach, always spoke about the support. The best support line has been directly in behind the ball. So, like, if you imagine coming straight behind the ball rather than from kind of left to the right or on different angles, because you can actually see the play unfolding. And he was probably third there, and because Ali did well to ride the first tackle, Elliot Daly's tackle, I think, and Magnus pretty much just took off right up the middle of the field, and you can see how devastating it is, because you're straight in behind the ball. You actually nullify a lot of defenders if you're in a space. You just straight through, never picked up. Brilliant energy, work rate to get there, and rewarded with the score.
I think the energy and the work rate to get there is a key point of why he scored that, because he was going so hard, working so hard to get there. It would have been easy for him to look at the two players in front of him and think one of them's going to pick up the pass, but he backed himself anyway, and because of the pace he hit the ball, there was nobody going to lay a hand on him.
Finn Russell, we touched on him earlier on in the podcast, but intercept try, reminiscent of that one that Mark Bennett scored in 2015, and for me that's when the crowd really turned, and it was very, very loud. Al, you were there. Sometimes it felt like a bit of a Scotland home game, but great from Finn to just read that past and go under the sticks. Yeah,
it was a smart line by him. Even if the pass had beaten him, the defence was still there to be able to make that tackle. So that's the key. If you're going to sell yourself, you need to make sure you get it. And it showed great pace, and I agree with you. It was a big momentum shift at that stage. That's probably when every Scots supporter in the stadium started believing, no, we might actually do this. He had a great game. He had a great second half. He wasn't at his best in the first half, but having the maturity to be able to change that, to change the accuracy level for the second half, says an awful lot about him. I don't know if any of you saw this, but during the game when Finn Russell had his intercept try, he was running towards the post, and he looks up and he's clearly using the big screen as maybe a reference for players behind him. Mike Pike, who used to play, Al, did you remember Mike Pike? Mike Pike Canadian went to Australia to play Aussie. Sorry, that name makes me laugh. Canadian lad who played in the wing, full-back, centre, big tall guy, really good athlete. He played internationally for Canada, and he scored against the All Blacks. I don't know where it was. It was in a tour run, a 60-70 metre run, and he used the screen, and it was kind of open. There was a big debate afterwards, and he said in his post-match interview, I could see the screen, because obviously whoever it was, the All Blacks winger, was chasing that. That'd be maybe 7 or 8 years ago. So maybe the players remember that and do that. The screens at the La Défense Arena in Paris are massive, but I think my eyes would be in the line, to be honest. I didn't notice it when I was playing much. Occasionally they would do close-ups of you, and at that point I realised that my hair was thinning. I never noticed. Overhead camera? I didn't make it. It was overhead camera. It's a cruel shot, that. Was that in your under 21 days? You can probably hear a bit of noise in the background. BT Murfield getting set up for the return of the Pro 14 this weekend. Just going back to the international games, I said Ali Price with the chip through. You know, he had a very good game. You've got Greig Laidlaw on the bench, so it's an interesting battle between Ali and Greig that's going to continue in the World Cup, isn't it? It's interesting what Gregor's done. He's obviously picked Greig at the start of the tournament, and then, you know, based on results, possibly based on the fact it's a World Cup year, that he wants to have a look at Ali and see what he can do as well. Now, Ali needed that result on Saturday, probably more than anybody else, to show that, you know, he can go in and he can do that. Although Greig comes on and carries on that momentum. Throw George Horn into that and Henry Burgess into that as well. Get into World Cup training camp, as we seem to always do every year. We've got an abundance of quality scrum halves, so there's some decisions to make. And Greig's impact was excellent as well, and you know his leadership, and I believe how he spoke. Gregor made special mention of how he spoke at half time, and how he helped find the right tone. So yeah, good. A lot of strength and depth there. It's tough for him in the last couple of weeks. You know, Scotland captain, and he's lost his place, and Gregor will have explained the reasons for it, but that's still a tough place to find yourself in. So to come out with Gregor picking him out for individual praise says an awful lot about his character. And then we saw his playing ability. We went on for that last, it was 25 minutes he played. It was a decent amount of time. Well, after the game I sat down with Greig for a quick chat. A really simple question: how would you sum up a game like that? It's not that simple an answer actually, because we're pretty worried at half time, not going to lie. We're kind of all over the place. That obviously wasn't in the plan. Never started the game well, but massive credit to the boys. They came in here and stuck to their guns at half time and said, let's just win the second half, and we got some momentum, and it was tremendous to see the reaction from the players. What was it like for you watching during the first half? Well, I was watching kind of through my hands for bad parts of it. It's difficult because I've been in games before when you can see it slipping away, and the boys, it's not through lack of effort, and you know, we were just,
you need to concentrate in test matches for 80 minutes, and we won't concentrate on our defender on our own, and England are a quality team and they're picking us off, so we were able to regroup at half time, and as I said, tremendously proud of the playing group to come back with a performance in the second half, and ultimately we're gutted we didn't hold on, to be honest.
And how much of a positive is it for you boys as a group to finish? Okay, it wasn't a win, but the comeback itself was phenomenal. To finish on a high like that, going into especially a World Cup year.
Yeah, vitally important. We talked in the week and yesterday as a playing group how important this was to finish because of what was coming up in terms of the World Cup, and so we never got it the first half, but it just shows again in the second half like how dangerous a team we are, scoring 31 points in the second half against a quality team like England shows that we can compete in big games, and we just need that consistency. If we stop hurting ourselves and play for 80 minutes, we can challenge big teams in big games, but it's up to us as a playing group to go away and understand why that's not happening and make sure that does happen come the World Cup.
Interesting you choose to interview him in a nightclub at night time instead of in the changing rooms after the game.
That was in the changing room. It was post-match, and it was interesting about the post-match. We've touched on it. It was a draw, and it felt like a draw. You guys have been involved in draws. There's a weird feeling. There's a numbness. But the boys were visibly gutted to not have won that game, and I think that shows a lot about the group of players, because there was no celebration, there was no hurrah. It was a disappointment. You guys have been involved in draws as well. It's a tough one, isn't it?
We drew 2010 out here. We drew England.
Yeah. I had a 28-all draw with Wales out here once as well. 2000.
They can be horrible. They can be horrible results. It all depends on how the game goes. Now, with hindsight, at half time, you would bite somebody's hand off for that draw. But with a minute to go in the game, there's no way you want a draw. You're 7 points up. You've got control of the ball, and then all of a sudden they turn this over. So it's all just about being able to sit back and reflect on it a wee bit. Now, from the stand, even then you're quite emotionally attached. But a draw based on the fact that one team played well in one half and one team played well in the other half was probably a fair result.
I think it's good that it's not overly celebrated. I think what should be celebrated and it's mentioned is the second half performance ultimately, but it is an 80-minute game. As cliche as it sounds, that's what it is, and you're there to win. But I mean, phenomenal comeback, as we keep saying. But yeah, I think that the players have. I'm pleased to hear that they were, not elated to draw, but obviously proud of their performance in the second half. And
then it's also put in the context of the tournament as well. I used to get grumpy at Glasgow because we used to win games at the end of European Cup tournaments where they didn't actually matter for us. So the boys know that it could have been and should have been a better tournament. It could have been a massive result in the context of a Calcutta Cup match, but it's part of a bigger piece. Now that bigger piece is the Six Nations tournament, but also the fact there's a World Cup to build towards. Going into that game, England, let's not forget, England were massive favourites to win that game. Bookies had them miles and miles ahead. So if you step back and look at it, a draw is a good result. It's the context of the game that makes it difficult to take at times.
So apparently we are the first team to score 6 tries against England at Twickenham. We've scored 5 before the 1930s. I think France scored 5 in 2015. The 6th try, Sam Johnson, a great bit of individual. I mean, he just ran straight. A great try, wasn't it, Linz?
Yeah, I think he did a little bit more than just running straight. He interested the defence and also tried to change his angle of running again, similar to McInally in the first half. But I think Sam's had a really good first Six Nations. He's played in some really big games and he's made an impact.
What about the pass from Finn Russell, Mossy? It was his eyes. Everybody was talking about the fact that he's trying to tell lies and then just drops it off into Sam's running.
Yeah, I didn't notice that at the time actually for the initial viewing. It came from a turnover. I think Vunipola was stripped or he dropped the ball as he came a 1 runner. So it was
Simon
almost
Bergen,
like a counter attack or a turnover attack try, which is often the best source to attack from because the defence is less organised. But England are famed for getting organised really quickly with their defence, and then they come forward off the line and try and put under loads of pressure. Finn knows that. He's played 75 minutes with that pressure on him. And interestingly, I think it was Nathan Hughes who came out the line, who was just on, and Manu Tuilagi, who'd played for the 75 minutes, drifted out. So you've got a real split there between somebody who's fresh, looking to make this massive impact, fly out the line, and Tuilagi, who's looking to do, slide out. That then has to be recognised from the passer and the ball receiver. And Sam's line to run at space was brilliant. Now he was given the time to run at space because Finn delayed the pass, and then the no look's just a wee bit added extra, to be honest. But then he had a bit of finishing to do. It was like 45 metres, and he almost fooled Jack Nowell by looking as if he was going to try and go straight for the line from the 22, and because he made so much commitment to going for the line, Jack Nowell, and he thought that, and then last minute steps off his right foot. But there's one or two, probably you would say, if you're England again, or you're an English defence coach, there's one or two, I think 3 players that you would have thought would have either targeted the ball, gotten underneath them, or stopped them. But brilliant finish.
Sam's had a great tournament. It's worth remembering he got his first cap in this tournament as well. He undoubtedly could have had, I mean, he was good in the England game, but he could have probably defensively been a wee bit sharper in the first half. But credit to him to come out and put that second half performance in. We had Duncan Taylor down at an event on Friday night at the BT Tower, and he's talking about his return now. He's hoping that he'll be back training in May, but obviously after the length of time out, that's still to be confirmed. But when you look at the centres, we've got an awful lot of options, both at 12 and 13, and different players in there as well. Mossy, the kind of strike runner of a Duncan Taylor, of a Hugh Jones, whereas both Pete Horn and Sam have got that distribution.
Yeah, it's a good balance, isn't it? And again, you talk about the different ways that you want to try and play the game, where your decision makers at 9 and 10, you've got that ability in the midfield as well. And for me, I think what works best for Scotland is if we've got a kind of all-rounder in the midfield. I think a distributor is really key. If some of our most attacking, potent threats are out wide, with Stuart Hogg and Blair Kinghorn and Thomas Seymour and Darcy Graham and Sean Maitland and everyone else who's got that pace and that guile out wide, they need the ball distributed to them at the right time. And I think so. What's crucial for me is almost what the New Zealand guys call a second 5'8", a second distributor, and Sam fits that bill really, really well. But he still has the ability, as we saw, to finish for distance, to run lines, and as an aggressive tackler as well. So we've got loads of kind of ability in there. Duncan Taylor can play anywhere really across the back three in the midfield. You'll never have, I don't know if I said this earlier, you'll never have a scenario where everybody's fit. Everybody you want to be fit is fit. Not in rugby. The risk of injury is so great, that the risk of niggle and bumps and knocks, so you're never going to have everyone fit. But if we did have, it'd be a really, really difficult task to pick how you're going to play and who you're going to play. But you want as many of them available as possible, because by the nature of the injuries, you're going to need them.
Timings are looking good for us so ahead of this World Cup, with the guys coming back all in the right time frame to be fit for that World Cup camp. But there's an awful lot of rugby to be played now in the World Cup, including club games are going back into and summer tests ahead of it.
Loads of tries scored in the Six Nations this year. It's a total of 84 tries across the championship, which, believe it or not, it's an increase of 127% in 6 years. So in 2013 there was only a total of 37 tries scored. So maybe it gives you an idea of how the game's played. What contradicts that is the team that won the Grand Slam in Wales scored 10 tries. The joint fewest number of tries scored with Italy, who scored 10 as well, ended up with 0 in the table. So their game and their championship's built on defence, but certainly an alarming try scoring rate, an increase in the tries over the last few years. So
Mossy, do you think that sometimes pushing for these tries leaves you vulnerable in defence?
In essence, yes. I think maybe international rugby is more simple than we think. If you've only got 8 or 10 weeks together across a year, and you're trying to implement a structure, it's difficult to do, because we've said it for the last 3 weeks running. Wales basically build their game on defending strongly and almost kicking the ball away. So if you don't have a huge amount of time to prepare, and you've got a really strong physical defence, it's actually not a bad tactic. It's reactive, but it's not a bad tactic. Do I think that would win a World Cup? I'm not sure, because in the World Cup year you've got far more time together. You're almost trying to make this club ethos across all your preparation, 4 summer tests into your World Cup. So there's more chance of you playing like a club. But for a Six Nations window and some miserable weather at times, Wales, with the personnel I've got, I still don't think we should play like that. I think how we played suits us, and when we do it accurately, it's undoubtedly the best thing to do. But Wales have certainly bucked the trend a wee bit in terms of try scores and wanting the defence.
With that stat about the most tries scored, Is that maybe because of the introduction of the bonus points as well?
Could be as well. That obviously 3 years. I think it's 3 seasons now we've had the bonus point. I like the bonus point system. I think it's good. I think it's a good addition. But I think it's almost the way the game's going. If you think, mainly, I would trace it right back to the All Blacks winning the 2011 World Cup, and just after then the attacking rugby that they started to bring, and there was a chain of thought there. Now, if you're going to have to be the best team in the world, you're going to have to score tries. It's unlikely. You face kind of the All Blacks if they are the best team, the number 1 team in the world, and you're going to win 10-9 or 6-3 because they've got the attacking ability to score. Now, in saying that, most World Cup knockout stages, at the kind of business end of World Cup, do come down to that. But yeah, it's I think that tries, but definitely better for us as spectators to see the tries. You see,
to your point about it's the way the game's gone, you see less and less teams now taking the points. The first decision is generally to go to the corner or to create some sort of attacking threat. I don't believe that's necessarily because everybody's chasing a bonus point. People are just looking at it and saying, we're more likely to get at times a 7-pointer than a difficult 3-pointer. So I, from a spectator's point of view, it's brilliant. The game's more exciting because of it.
No, well done, Wales. I just want to go back to look at England now. Eddie Jones came out today actually and said there's some stuff that we need to fix from mental scars from 2015. Just get your guys' thoughts on that. I think that's a bit of a strange comment. It's almost passing blame onto a previous coaching regime. Yeah,
that's nonsense. If he's got mental scars to fix stuff from the second half of the game at the weekend.
He didn't look the happiest today. The camera quite liked to focus on him a wee bit, but
he also came out before the match and said that England were going to put in their best performance against Scotland. Now, they probably did for 40 minutes. Now, I'm not overly worried about talking too much about England. I think we're quite concentrated on the fact that we went out and put a great performance in. Eddie Jones likes a soundbite. He likes to be controversial in the media. From our point of view, I thought we handled ourselves brilliantly after the game. Spoke well, the players spoke well. Finn Russell's interview, which went out to the stadium as well, I thought he spoke brilliantly. He was humble enough and talked about the chances that could have been taken. That we were very unlucky not to win the game.
It'd be interesting to know how many players that were involved in the matchday squad on Saturday were involved in the 2015 World Cup. I think it was maybe 4.
Yeah.
So it's it's an interesting one there. Maybe the influence of that 2015 still has a bearing on the players who weren't involved in it. I don't think so. England went on a 23 game winning streak, didn't they, just after that?
Yep.
And I think that would have answered a lot of the questions if there was doubts then. It's difficult for head coaches, isn't it? I mean, especially when someone as I suppose as prominent as Eddie Jones is going to field a lot of questions. Quite rightly, he doesn't have to tell everybody else what he's going to work on and what he thinks the weaknesses are, but I'm a born individual, but I still go back to the accuracy. They let them down. If they were accurate in the second half that they were in the first half, there's no way that we could have controlled the game the way we did and got into it. So
I wasn't watching the second half thinking mental scars from 2015 were making England play badly.
Never know though. Never know.
You never know what goes on. But just on that, the mentality side of things, Eddie Jones and Owen Farrell touched on it on the post-match press conference.
Well, I'm not sticking with the problem. I'm trying to get rid of it. Well, we've got good time before the World Cup because these are possibly things that the team's had for a long time, even before I've had them. So we need to make sure we get the right people in to help us, and we'll sort it out. It was 100% mental. There's no physical difference out there at all. It's 100% the way you think, and we'll get that right.
I'd say it's definitely mental. As we said, we saw in the first 20 minutes or so how good we were physically. I think when they did come back and they got that momentum shift, it probably shocked us that bit too much. We talked about staying calm and sticking to the process, and obviously it didn't quite work out that way.
Eddie Jones there, a few interesting, and you mentioned it, Al, sound bites. It seems like a few more in there as well.
Yeah, a bit slopey shoulders there as well. I mean, there clearly was mental issues in that second half. I agree with what Farrell was saying, but the mental issues do not date back to 2015. They do not predate Eddie Jones. At international rugby, 3 years is a long time to be coaching a team. I would have liked to have seen him take it a wee bit more on the chin there and talk about the fact that clearly something wasn't right in either in the build-up or the chat at half-time that meant that they didn't get the 80 minutes performance, not dating it back to 2015. But as I said earlier, let's concentrate on Scotland. Brilliant performance in the second half and not much about them. Like, England in that first half looked phenomenal, or were phenomenal. Weren't they? I mean, the power, the accuracy, everything was right. A big flip round at half-time. From our point of view, we've got to look at what Scotland have done and take credit for that. From England point of view, Eddie Jones dating back to 2015, as I've already said, doesn't sit well with me.
That's hurt you, Al, isn't it? That's the fourth time you've said
like,
that.
The thing is about a coach, any coach that we've ever worked with, you want to win and lose together. You know, you have a victory, it's us, as in us, the coaching team, everybody's done that together.
As in them, as in players and management.
Yeah, that struck me a wee bit of it dates back, it predates me, so I'll try and fix it, I'll do my best to fix it. Nonsense, like they collectively.
There's a bit of credit to Farrell. He, in that interview there, he tried to take a bit of responsibility for it.
He'll stand up in front of
more than Eddie did.
Now Eddie Jones will take it when they're winning games. Now when we didn't lose this games, it was a draw. But in saying that has to be a collective. We didn't do what we needed to do in the second half. No, it predates me. It's Mossy. It's got me, that one.
Mm-hmm. That's your mirrors and windows, isn't it?
It is.
Let's wrap up the 2019 Guinness Six Nations with one final question. Who is your Scotland player of the tournament? Mine, Jamie Ritchie. Thought he's been brilliant.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think consistently over the whole tournament, I mean, although he missed the last game, his performance has been right up there. He's got maturity beyond his years. So I completely agree, Jamie Ritchie.
Jamie's been brilliant. You mentioned him already. Stuart McInally would maybe come into that category as well.
I'm with you on that one, Mossy. That was my player as well.
Yeah. Overall, championship wise, one player who catches my eye, and I'm not saying he's the best player in the tournament, but one player who I like watching and is exciting me is Antoine Dupont, the French scrum half. Just the way he plays, for a young player, I think he's up there for me, an attack-minded player.
Yeah, I'm going to keep it in a second.
You've got an element.
Of course I am. It's so obvious, but you have to, just with the influence he has in that Welsh team. He's maybe not the flashiest of players, but everything that Wales do well, Alan Wynne-Jones does well as well. So you've got to give him enormous credit for that. So he would be my player of the tournament.
Owen Kellogg, wasn't it you?
That second row union. I would struggle to find a player on any other teams that has as big an influence as he has in that Welsh team, and the Welsh team won the Grand Slam. So
if we just jump back to the night before, Friday night, Franklin's Gardens was the venue for the Scotland under-20s match. Despite the result, Scotland did get off to a pretty good start, Moss.
He did early interception. The Scotland lads are always going to be up against it. The English under-20s they quite often rotate their team in the Six Nations Championship. They put a greater focus on the under-20s Championship, the World Championship in the summer, and they rotated a little bit through the Championship this year. But Scotland brought a physicality. They've got a good intercepting try, Cam Anderson early in the first half, and then England took a little bit of control. There was 3 tries the TMO rolled out for England, which were all correct. One for Scotland just in the stroke of half time. So it was 12-7 at half time, and then it was probably about the 50-minute mark where England really pulled ahead. Some really good play. I say differently to how the national team play. They play far more expansively. I know England have scored a lot of tries and certainly scored against us early on in the first half with that expansive play. That's how their under-20s play all the time. And key to that was Cameron Redpath at 12. Brian Redpath's son, he threw the pass for the interception, but I must admit the way he played and drove the team through that distribution was really good. But the Scottish lads improved throughout the tournament, as we said they would. It's so difficult for them to hit the ground running with the level of competition that some of the guys are exposed to. Most of the guys are exposed to before facing players who are playing a professional brand, be it in the top 14, the Pro 14, or the English Premiership. But they were improved as it went on. The 20s will be frustrated at how it ended on Friday night. But again, that game, that word momentum, once England did get ahead, and they're physical and they're strong and they're on the front foot, they just pulled away from Scotland in the last 20 minutes.
Mossy, you mentioned the quality of rugby those boys are playing. That's where the Super 6 should step in for us, and a lot of the guys that are playing in that under 20s should progress into that, and that'll give them that level above.
Absolutely, hope so. That's one of the primary aims for it, is to increase the competition, and for those who want to go down that route, they can challenge themselves professionally. So that'll hopefully help. The players do need it, that level of competition. It's very difficult for them to, as I keep saying, to face such a high level without preparation. But the big thing for them now is the under 20s World Championship. In the summer they'll play 2 or 3. They'll have a couple of camps of 2 or 3 warm-up games, and go down to Argentina. I think they play New Zealand, Georgia, or New Zealand, South Africa, then Georgia. I think they'll double check that in their pool. So,
Mossy, how much kind of training time will they have before they head away? Because obviously we've picked up on the fact that during the course of the Six Nations they've started to build a bit of momentum, and having that time together has obviously been key for them.
The under-20s will be based in Scotland, in our Force Rock academies. Will work together often, and they'll spend a lot of time together. The ones who based elsewhere, the XL, it's more difficult, but you'll get them together for formal camps, maybe 2 camps and trial games.
So would they have like a separate XLs camp, or would they join?
No, they'll
up
come
with
here.
the
There'll be
Scottish
1 or 2 occasions where they come here for a weekend or a few days, 1 or 2 day camps, and then there'll be fixtures against other under-20s national teams, and even club teams within Scotland, hopefully. So they'll spend more time together between now and the World Cup than they did between the start of the season and the start of Six Nations.
Mossy, you mentioned the Forest Rock Academies there, and over the weekend announced that Shade Munro will be leaving Scotland Women to take up a role with the academies. Lynn's just jumping on this, but I think there's no question about the impact that Shade's had in and around the women over the past couple of years. It's been great, hasn't it?
Yeah, both, as a player and now like a former player, Shade's made a massive difference to the women's squad. Not solely focusing on results, but the kind of professionalism he's brought to the squad. Training was a lot of fun. He's a funny guy for any of you guys that know him. He brings that element to training, but he also knows when to make it serious. And I thought that kind of helped a lot of the girls who were maybe newer to that level of rugby. It wasn't so daunting. You had somebody who was kind of leading our ship, I suppose, and he brought in some really good training ideas, which the girls really kind of took to.
Last 3 or 4 years has been a huge transition in the women's game in Scotland, and it's gone from predominantly an amateur based set of girls to more professional, and even the ones that aren't playing away from Scotland, who aren't necessarily full-time professionals, there's that professional attitude. So you mentioned Shady there. Shady's a guy who understands the amateur elements of the game, understands what brings a group together, but also has got a huge amount of professional coaching experience with Glasgow as well. So I think he's been the perfect man for the last few years, and I wish him luck with his new job in the Force Rock Academies.
He'll do well at that as well. The experience, and he'll know the Glasgow guys. He cares about the Glasgow rugby district. He played, obviously, and been involved for so long professionally. But that role where you're looking for technical insight, especially for forwards, will be invaluable for young forwards to get that level of detail from someone who's achieved so much, international player and as a coach. That'll be hopefully lost a good one in Ian Monaghan, who went to further his career in Hong Kong. So Shade in that role will be really, really good as well. And
the fact that so many more girls are coming into the Force Rock Academies as well. He's got more understanding probably than anybody else on the top end of the women's game, so I'm sure he'll bring plenty of those players through too.
Well, and just a final point on Scotland Women against England at Twickenham. They went straight on after the men for the final game in the Six Nations, and Shade touched on it. We had a conversation in the tunnel after, and he said it's always going to be a challenge because England, Grand Slam winning team, a full-time professional team playing against Scotland, who are implementing professional players and building on that. So it was always going to be a challenge, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a huge challenge. I think the women's team weren't ever in a position to put out their strongest team. They had a few injuries that kind of hampered selection sometimes. But yeah, going to Twickenham and playing in a stadium like that, I think the crowd it was over 13,000. So, massive crowd there. Obviously, quite small in a big stadium like that. However, for some of those girls, that'll be the biggest stage they've played on. And just to kind of put it into a bit of perspective, England scored a total of 45 tries across the Six Nations with a total of 278 points across 5 matches. They've scored 45 tries. One player in their team scored 9 tries herself, which is almost as many as Wales men scored across the whole tournament.
Yeah.
So, their programme's working well for them. They're investing in it, but their girls are full-time. So they train the same way that our male players do. They've got that time to rest, which we've spoken about before is really important. And we've got girls who are juggling their careers as well as their rugby. But you can't fault their effort. It's hard to defend for 80 minutes. But I think there were some good performances from some individuals. I think Panache from Watsonia, she got her first cap as well. So yeah, there was some positives to take from that, but shame to see Shade moving on, but he's done a lot, and it's up to that next person to kind of move it to the next level.
One more thing, Pro 14 Rugby returns this weekend. Edinburgh at home to Leinster and Glasgow Warriors at home to Cheetahs. Edinburgh are going to have to really push hard now, aren't they, to get into the playoffs?
Big game this weekend, isn't it? Interesting to see how many players come straight back in from international duty. I think some will get a deserved rest. It'll probably be looked at how many games over the 5 you've played, but Edinburgh, 2 disappointing results in the last 2 rounds against Cardiff and Benetton, so really need to push hard. And then the week after that's Munster, the big one here, obviously in Europe, so really important for Edinburgh to get back to winning ways this weekend, Friday night here against Leinster.
The Leinster team will probably rest quite a few of their Irish guys ahead of the quarter final the week after. Edinburgh clearly have got the home quarter final as well, but I think that Edinburgh need to go as fully loaded as they possibly can on the back of a tough Guinness Six Nations to make sure that they still get that win, because they can't afford to lose. Can they afford to lose one more? I mean, possibly, but it depends on other results.
Yeah, I agree with you, Al, because the last couple of Six Nations, Edinburgh maybe haven't had as many players involved in the Six Nations, so it's been great that they have had more players involved, but also those players coming back in are going to bring in a kind of another level to the team performance. I think
it's tough from a point of view to be able to switch straight back in, probably more mentally than physically. Like physically the guys will get the rest they need during the week. I'm sure they won't be worked overly hard if they do come back in, but it's a mental element to get that right.
The quicker you get back, the better sometimes as well. I think you need a Monday off that definitely a Monday, maybe a Monday, Tuesday, but if you know you're coming back in, the quicker you get back into your teammates. One thing we used to do when we were playing was you would have a squad lunch or a meal out just en masse, just to get everybody talking back into Edinburgh or Glasgow or your club focus. So if you know you're coming back in, you will be battered and bruised, but the quicker the better, I think.
Blair Kinghorn out for the rest of the season. Who starts at 15?
It's a big mess, isn't it? Dougie Fife's played there and deputised there. We've got Tom Brown still in the squad. Simon Hickey could probably play back there as well if you want a safe pair of hands and a kicking option. 1 or 2 injuries as well, actually, Edinburgh mounted up, but they'll have a squad, and Richard Cockrell will have them ready to face Leinster. Leinster always have a deep squad that no matter who the rest or who they bring back from the national stuff, they'll play the same way as they would whether they're doing internationals or not. But Edinburgh, I think, hopefully can get back to winning ways here on Friday night.
So Glasgow have got the Cheetahs on Saturday night, which will be a tough game, but only 3 players started for Scotland in the England game at the weekend from Glasgow, so that probably gives Dave Rennie the opportunity to bring a few more guys back in, but he's also in a stronger position, and at the moment they're pushing for first, and it's really a decision or the results will determine whether they come first or second, so he potentially can afford to rest a few more guys. If they finish first in that conference, it'll make the path to the final an awful lot easier though.
I think as well though they've had some really good results during that Six Nations period as well, whereas in the past we might have been pretty light, but we've put in some good performances, and I think it's just taking those performances into this next game on Saturday with the Cheetahs.
You've seen last season as well with Dave Rennie through in Glasgow, he'll pick who he wants to pick. He's quite often, there's been international players come back and not played for Glasgow, and that kind of ethos and culture is there, that the players will know when they do go back from international duty that regardless of whether they've started or not been involved internationally, it's a clean slate, and it's how they perform, how they train, and how they can take on the Cheetahs on Saturday.
Thanks for listening to the official Scottish Rugby podcast. We'll be back next week with a huge Heineken Cup quarter-final special as we look ahead to a huge weekend for Glasgow Warriors and Edinburgh Rugby.